Here's something nobody warned you about when you start waking up. You're going to start disliking people, not hate them, not wish them harm, but you're going to feel this growing distance, this uncomfortable friction, this sense that you're suddenly speaking a different language than everyone around you, and it's going to make you feel like maybe you're the problem. Maybe you've become judgmental. Maybe you've turned into one of those spiritual snobs who thinks they're better than everyone else. Let me tell you right now, that's not what's happening. But what is happening is complicated and uncomfortable, and nobody really talks about it honestly because it doesn't fit the pretty picture of what enlightenment is supposed to look like. I remember the moment I first felt it. I was at this party in the Hollywood Hills, surrounded by successful, intelligent, beautiful people. People I'd known for years, people I'd laughed with, worked with, considered friends, and I was standing there with a drink in my hand, listening to someone talk about their latest project, their latest achievement, their latest drama, and I felt nothing, worse than nothing. I felt this creeping sense of claustrophobia, like I was suffocating in a room full of people performing for each other. And the worst part, I knew I'd been one of those performers for decades. The shift started slowly. At first, I just noticed I was tired after social interactions, drained, like someone had unplugged me and let all my energy leak out. I'd go home from dinners, from parties, from meetings, and I'd need hours of silence just to feel like myself again. And I thought, maybe I'm just getting older. Maybe I'm becoming introverted. But it wasn't that. It was something else, something deeper. I was starting to see through people, and I don't mean that in some mystical, supernatural way. I mean, I could see the performance, the mask, the carefully constructed persona they were presenting to the world. And once you start seeing that, once you really see it, being around people becomes exhausting because you're watching a play where everyone's pretending it's real life. You start to notice how much of human interaction is just transaction. People aren't connecting, they're positioning. They're networking, they're managing their image, they're trying to get something from you or trying to make sure you don't get something from them. Every conversation has this hidden agenda, this subtext, this game being played underneath the words. And when you wake up, when you stop playing that game yourself, you can see it everywhere. And it's exhausting. Here's what I've come to understand. You don't actually start disliking people. You start disliking the falseness, the performance, the mask. But because most people have identified so completely with their mask, because they think they are the performance, when you react to the falseness, it feels like you're reacting to them. And in a way, you are, because they've become the lie. I started avoiding people, not consciously at first. I'd just find excuses not to go to events. I'd decline invitations. I'd keep conversations short. And people noticed, Jim, you're different now. You're distant. You're not fun anymore. And they were right. I wasn't fun in the way they wanted me to be fun. I wasn't willing to put on the Jim Carrey show anymore. I wasn't willing to be the dancing monkey who makes everyone laugh while dying inside. The spiritually awake person starts disliking people because they can feel the unconsciousness. It's like being sober at a party where everyone's drunk. You can see how ridiculous everyone's being, how their inhibitions are down, how they're saying things they don't mean, how they're going to regret this tomorrow. And you feel separate, isolated, like you're watching from outside a glass wall. But here's where it gets tricky. You start judging that. You start thinking you're better because you can see it. And that's the trap. That's the spiritual ego sneaking in disguised as awareness. Because the moment you think you're more evolved than someone else, you've just created another mask, another performance. You're now playing the role of the enlightened person who's above all the worldly games, and that's just another game. I went through this phase. I'm not proud of it. I looked at people with pity. Poor sleepers, I'd think. Poor unconscious masses, running around chasing things that don't matter, completely unaware of what's really happening. And I felt superior, special, like I'd figured something out that they hadn't. And you know what that was? That was my ego finding a new identity to cling to. I'd stopped being Jim Carrey the movie star and became Jim Carrey the awakened one. Same trap, different costume. The truth is more nuanced than dislike. What you're feeling is a lack of resonance. It's like being a tuning fork that's been adjusted to a different frequency. You're still vibrating, they're still vibrating, but you're no longer in harmony. And that creates this uncomfortable dissonance. Not because anyone's wrong, not because anyone's bad, just because you're operating on different wavelengths now. You start disliking small talk because you can feel how it's used as a barrier to real connection. People talk about weather and traffic and what they watched on TV because they're terrified of going deeper. They're terrified of being seen. They're terrified of the vulnerability that comes with real conversation. So they fill the space with noise. And when you've tasted silence, when you've experienced the peace of just being with someone without all the performance, that noise becomes unbearable. You start disliking the complaints. Oh God, the complaints. People complaining about things they're not willing to change. Complaining about their jobs but not quitting. Complaining about their relationships but not leaving or working on them. Complaining about their lives but not taking responsibility for them. And you realize that complaining is just another way to avoid action. Another way to stay stuck while feeling like you're doing something. You start disliking the drama, the manufactured crises, the mountains made out of molehills. The way people create problems so they have something to focus on, something to distract themselves from the real questions. Because if you're always dealing with some urgent drama, you never have to sit with the existential emptiness. You never have to face the void. You never have to ask yourself who you really are when all the drama falls away, and you start disliking the advice. Everyone's suddenly got advice for you. You need to be more social. You need to get out more. You need to stop being so serious. You need to have more fun. And what they really mean is, you need to come back to where we are so we don't have to feel uncomfortable about where you've gone. They want you to be who you were because who you were made them comfortable. Who you're becoming makes them question themselves. And they don't want to question themselves. They want to stay asleep. But here's what I learned through all of this, and this is crucial. The dislike you feel isn't the end of the journey. It's the middle. It's the awkward adolescent phase of awakening. You've left home, but you haven't found your new home yet. You've stopped identifying with the old world, but you haven't fully embodied the new one. You're in between, and in between is uncomfortable. Because what happens if you keep going, if you keep diving deeper into this awakening, is that the dislike starts to dissolve. Not because people change, they don't. Not because you go back to sleep, you can't. But because you start to see something else. You start to see that everyone's doing the best they can with the level of consciousness they have. You start to see that the masks people wear are their protection, their armor, their survival mechanism. And underneath every mask is just a scared human being trying to avoid pain and find love. You start to see that the person who's performing isn't evil or stupid, or less than you. They're just stuck in a story. And you were stuck in that same story. You might still be stuck in parts of it. The only difference is you've become aware of the story. You've seen it for what it is. But they haven't. And they won't until they're ready. And that readiness isn't something you can force or facilitate or speed up. So the dislike transforms into something else. Not approval, not participation, but compassion. You can see the game without needing to play it. You can see the performance without needing to be entertained by it or disgusted by it. You can just see it. And in that seeing, there's a kind of love, not the sentimental, emotional love, but a deeper love. A love that sees through the mask to the consciousness underneath. A love that recognizes itself in the other, even when the other doesn't recognize it in themselves. I don't hang out with the same people anymore. Most of my old friendships have faded, not because of some dramatic falling out, just because we don't have anything to talk about anymore. They're interested in things I'm not interested in. I'm interested in things they think are weird or depressing or too heavy. We've grown in different directions, and that's okay, that's natural, that's what happens. But the new people I've found, the few rare souls who are on a similar journey, those connections are deeper than anything I experienced before. We can sit in silence together and it's not awkward. We can talk about death and meaning and consciousness and it's not heavy. We can be vulnerable without it being a performance of vulnerability. We can just be. And that's worth losing 100 superficial friendships. Here's what I wish someone had told me when I first started feeling this dislike, this distance, this growing separation from people. It's temporary. It's not the destination. It's not where you're supposed to stay. You're not supposed to become a hermit who hates humanity. You're supposed to move through the dislike to something deeper, to understanding, to compassion, to a kind of love that doesn't need people to be anything other than what they are. And you're not supposed to force yourself to like people when you don't. You're not supposed to fake it. You're not supposed to pretend you're still interested in the things that bore you now, or pretend you're still entertained by the performances that exhaust you. You're supposed to honor what you're feeling. Create space. Step back. Let yourself be where you are in this process without judgment, because judgment is just another form of attachment. When you judge people for being asleep, you're still attached to them being different than they are. You're still trying to change them, fix them, wake them up, and that's not your job. Your job is to wake yourself up, to become more conscious, to see more clearly, to love more deeply, and sometimes that means loving people from a distance. I used to think enlightenment would make me more connected to people, and in a way it has, but not in the way I expected. I'm not more socially connected. I don't have more friends. But the connections I do have, they're real, they're deep, they're authentic, and I'd rather have 3 real connections than 300 fake ones. The dislike you're feeling is your soul saying no to what doesn't nourish it anymore. It's your consciousness rejecting what isn't real. It's your being demanding authenticity in a world that's built on pretense. And that's not a problem. That's evolution, that's growth. That's you becoming more of who you actually are, and less of who you were programmed to be. But don't get stuck there. Don't let the dislike become your new identity. Don't become the person who's against everything, who can only see what's wrong, who walks around pointing out everyone's unconsciousness. Because that's just another trap, another ego, another performance. Move through it. Let yourself feel it, honor it, but keep going, keep opening, keep softening, because on the other side of dislike is something beautiful. It's a kind of acceptance that doesn't require approval, a kind of love that doesn't require a kind of presence that can be with anyone, anywhere, without needing them to be different than they are. I can sit with people now and just see them, not judge them, not try to change them, not need them to understand me, just see them. See the fear underneath the bravado. See the pain underneath the performance. See the love underneath the defense mechanisms. And in that scene, there's connection. Not the kind of connection that needs to be maintained through constant contact or shared interests, but the kind of connection that exists simply because we're both here, both conscious, both expressions of the same source. The people you start disliking after awakening aren't your enemies. They're mirrors. They're showing you what you used to be. What parts of you are still asleep? What patterns you're still running? And they're testing your awakening. Because it's easy to be peaceful alone. It's easy to be loving in meditation. The real test is, can you maintain your center around people who push every button you have? Can you stay conscious around unconsciousness? Can you be still in the middle of chaos? That's the practice, that's the real work. Not separating yourself from the world and declaring yourself evolved, but being in the world with all its messiness and unconsciousness and pain and remaining awake. Remaining present. Remaining loving. Even when people are being everything you've transcended, even when people are playing every game you've stopped playing. And some days you'll fail. Some days you'll be judgmental. Some days you'll be frustrated. Some days you'll want nothing more than to disappear from all human contact and live alone on a mountain somewhere. And that's okay. That's human. That's part of the journey. You're not supposed to be perfectly enlightened. You're supposed to be awake to your own humanness, awake to your own process, awake to your own growth. So if you're feeling this dislike, if you're feeling this distance, if you're feeling like you don't fit anywhere anymore, you're not broken, you're not doing it wrong, you're in the middle of the biggest transformation of your life. You're dying to who you were and being born into who you are. And birth is messy, birth is painful, birth is uncomfortable, but what's being born is worth it. What's emerging is the real you. Not the performed you, not the acceptable you, not the you that makes everyone else comfortable, but the authentic, raw, real you. The you that doesn't need to fake anything, the you that doesn't need to perform, the you that can just be. And that you, that real, authentic you, it's not going to resonate with everyone. It's not going to be liked by everyone. It's not going to fit into the boxes everyone wants to put you in. And that's okay. That's more than okay. That's freedom. Because you're not here to be liked. You're not here to make everyone comfortable. You're not here to play the role everyone expects you to play. You're here to be awake, to be alive, to be real. And sometimes being real means being alone. Sometimes being authentic means being misunderstood. Sometimes being awake means being separate from the sleeping world. But I promise you this, the loneliness of authenticity is better than the loneliness of pretending. The isolation of truth is better than the connection of lies. And the few people who see the real you, who connect with the authentic you, who love you for who you actually are and not who they need you to be, those people are worth all the fake relationships you'll ever lose. So let yourself dislike people. Let yourself feel the distance. Let yourself be where you are. But don't stop there. Keep going. Keep opening. Keep loving. Because the ultimate awakening isn't separation from people. It's seeing that there are no people. There's just consciousness, wearing different masks, playing different roles, having different experiences. And it's all the same consciousness. It's all the same source. It's all you, looking at yourself through different eyes. That's when the dislike finally dissolves. Not because people change, but because you realize there's no one to dislike. There's just the one, playing every part, living every life, experiencing every experience. And you're not separate from any of it. You never were. You just forgot. And now you're remembering. And the remembering includes everyone. even the people you dislike. Especially the people you dislike, because they're you too. And you're learning to love all of yourself, even the parts that are still asleep.